What if your most challenging relationships were actually the key to your spiritual awakening? And what if these painful relationships could be your ticket to breaking karmic patterns and living a freer and fuller life? Would you be interested? Stick around because that's exactly what we'll be discussing in this video. Hey there, I'm Lisa Engles Witter, and welcome to my channel where I help spiritual seekers just like you to harness the ancient wisdom of yoga to live an extraordinary life. The goal of this channel is super simple, just to make it easier than ever before for anyone to find happiness and to find fulfillment in their everyday life by using what has already been handed down to us for millennia. One of the biggest challenges that my clients come to me with is that they find themselves stuck and repeating those same lessons over and over again in life. Most of them are frustrated. They're at a loss because they've already done years of the work. They've done the therapy, they've done the coaching, the counseling, the spiritual practices, but they still struggle with those same unhealthy relationships, or maybe they feel like they should be further along in life than they already are personally, professionally, spiritually, right? So if you can relate to that, then I invite you to head over to www.karmic-warrior.com to grab my free report on why you keep getting handed that one lesson in life, even if you've done years of the work. In this free report, I reveal to you the secret about harnessing the law of karma to finally break free of that one lesson so that you can live a freer, fuller life right now. And I put the link in the description below for you. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the little notification bell if you haven't already, because I post new videos just like this one on a regular basis. So what is a karmic relationship? I think we need to start our discussion there. A karmic relationship is a relationship in which two people, right? I guess it could be more than two, but for the purpose of this video, it's when two people come together in order to work through karmic patterns. And contrary to what, you might find out there on the internet, any significant relationship in your life is a karmic relationship. So there's not really any such thing as like, oh, this relationship is a karmic one and that one's not. Every relationship that's a significant relationship in your life is a karmic relationship. Now, these types of relationships can be positive or painful, right? So on the positive side, just spend a moment there. We're going to really be digging into the painful side, but let's start with the positive. On the positive side, you might have friendships. There might be those certain people in your life. I know I have two people that I can think of off of the top of my head that are definitely karmic relationships, very, very significant relationships, very, very positive relationships. In both cases, with both of these people, girlfriends of mine, we have these very, very uncanny parallels in our life. We're clearly working through the same karmic patterns. With one person, we were in a situation together, in a particular challenging situation together, and we became very, very close allies in that situation. And I like to think of it in these types of relationships that you're karmic allies. In other words, through the connection that you have and maybe the caring that you have for each other, you end up buoying each other through some challenging situation, which is certainly what happened for me in both of these two friendships that I'm thinking about. And in both of these friendships, I know for me, it was a matter of, interestingly enough, where these two different friends of me and myself have the same karmic patterns that we were working through, but we each had gifts that we could give each other to help on our healing journey to untangle ourselves from those karmic patterns. hopefully that makes sense. But I'm sure you've had some type of relationship in your life that is a positive karmic relationship like that. But what we really want to talk about are the other ones, right? The painful relationships, because these are more common. These relationships that are difficult, that are painful, that are challenging. And what we want to look at to begin with is that the very first karmic relationships that we have in our lifetime is the relationship that we have with our birth family members. So what happens is that our birth family and the people in our birth family offer us the perfect conditions for our karmic patterns to manifest in this lifetime. So it's said in yoga tradition that we come into this lifetime with certain karmic patterns or karmic traces. Some of those karmic patterns will be expressed in this lifetime, and some will not be expressed. So it is like a seed. A karmic pattern is like a seed. A seed needs the perfect conditions in order to grow into a flower, right? It needs sunlight, water, soil. If it doesn't have those conditions, then it'll sit dormant. That flower will sit dormant. It can sit dormant for years and years, decades even, right? Seed banks we have. So our karma and our karmic traces and our karmic patterns are thought to be much the same way, that they require certain conditions. These karmic tendencies require certain conditions in order to manifest in our life. And through our relationships with our birth family members, our karmic patterns become activated. So we're born into our family in order to activate and play out these karmic patterns. And then what happens is we take these karmic patterns into our subsequent relationships. So often what happens is that these show up as painful or difficult or challenging relationships. And it could be with, it could be with a coworker, it could be with someone in your social circle, a friend, a lover, a spouse. But I call these big ticket painful relationships are the ones that offer us the biggest opportunity for awakening, even if it's hard to see that that's the case when we're in the thick of it. And often these types of relationships tend to be longer term relationships. A marriage, for instance, or any type of long-term relationship that we might have been in, a family member, a friend, or adversary who just is with us for a long period of time in our life. Now, from the perspective of yoga wisdom tradition, all painful relationships offer us this opportunity to gain knowledge about ourselves in order to awaken to our true nature. So they really are a gift, and that's not lip service. You know how there's this common saying of, oh, what's the gift in it? And sometimes when you're in the thick of things, it's really hard to dig down and go, yeah, there's a gift in this, whatever. But there's always some type of bigger thing for us to look at here. And again, the purpose of these relationships is knowledge. So in other words, the purpose of our karma and our karmic patterns in these karmic relationships is knowledge, to learn about the truth of who we really are. And this is going to happen whenever our karmic patterns get triggered. So there's really the very, very first step that we can take in awakening through these painful relationships is to ask ourselves, what's the nature of my relating to other people's? What are my own reactions telling me about myself? We like to look at other people and point and blame and put all the blame on other people, but we need to look at ourselves. And in no way am I dismissing or letting anybody off the hook when we're in an abusive relationship, for instance. You don't let that person off of the hook for their actions. No, you can't do that, but you still got to look at yourself and go, what's going on here? What's the nature of how I'm being in this relationship? Because if we don't do this, the karmic pattern is then reinforced and we end up getting in similar types of relationships over and over and over again until we fix that, until it's healed. In Buddhism, they say an unexamined life leads to suffering. So we want to constantly be in this practice of examining ourselves. So our reactions are going to show us our karmic patterns, right? So another key inquiry that we can begin to do when we're in these painful types of karmic relationships is ask ourselves, what is this relationship teaching me about myself on a soul level? And what is it teaching me about myself on the level of relative reality? So let me just give an example of what I mean by that. When I say two levels of reality, we're working at the level of, worldly reality, and we have to go through life, and it's a reality of duality. And then we have the, non-dual reality, or the level of the soul. And those two things are happening simultaneously all the time. And so we want to be aware of that. We want to be asking ourselves, what am I trying to learn at the level of relative reality? What am I trying to learn at the level of the soul? So let's say, for instance, you're in a very toxic relationship. Well, maybe at the level of relative reality, what you're needing to learn is that, I don't have very good boundaries here, and I've allowed myself to be taken advantage of. So the lesson that this relationship might be teaching me right now is that I need to have appropriate boundaries. Super simple example, right? Same example, we look at the level of the soul. What am I here to learn at the level of the soul? Well, maybe and it's usually the case, that you're here to learn your true nature, that your true nature is divine, that you are whole and complete, and therefore you don't need approval outside of yourself in order to feel fulfilled, in order to feel whole, right? Because if you knew that about yourself, well, then you would stand up for yourself. You would be in your power. You would set appropriate boundaries. Again, I'm just making all this up off the cuff. But that's an example. So we always want to be asking ourselves, especially in a painful karmic relationship, we begin by asking ourselves that first question, which was, what is the nature of my relating to others? In other words, what are my reactions telling me about myself? And then number 2, what am I learning about myself at the level of relative reality and the level of the soul? All right. So once again, just to recap everything, every significant relationship that we have is a karmic relationship. And if we choose, we can begin to use our relationships as a vehicle for our own awakening by examining what we're being taught about ourselves, and most importantly, to see our misconceptions about who we really are. So I'd love to hear what you think about this video. Leave a comment below and let me know. And remember to hop on over to www.karmicwarrior.com to pick up my free report on why you keep getting handed that one lesson in life, even if you spent years doing the work. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, namaste.